Hello there, my name's Ashleigh and today I'd like to speak to you a little bit about media propaganda and anti-Semitism. Yesterday I made a video concerning media and the effect that the media has on the rise of Islamophobia globally, and today I'm tackling how the media portrays the conflict between Palestine and Israel and their twisting and use of propaganda to link any criticism of Israel to anti-Semitism. Now, for instance, yesterday evening, the Northwest Regional News ran a report about the rise of anti-Semitism in Britain. Now, it was completely biased. It started off and they were talking to a group of old ladies that were sat in an old people's home, and one old lady said they were chanting and waving Palestinian flags and chanting "Kill all Jews." Well, this just wasn't true, and I will read you the letter that the message that I sent to the BBC on the report shortly. But also they linked the report they did linked the criticism and the protest of Israel as being anti-Semitism in themselves, but they also raised the matter of protests outside the Israeli-owned shop CONDEMN, which citing it as being anti-Semitic, which it certainly was not in any way, and I want to be tackling that too. So we'll start off with my letter to the BBC, and this is how I messaged them back, and I'll explain in a moment. Your report tonight was an absolute biased disgrace. Old ladies in a care home speaking about Palestine protesters were chanting "Kill all Jews" was just lies. The police attend every demonstration and protest, and anyone speaking that way would have been rounded on by other pro-Palestinian protesters and arrested by the police. Millions of people globally came out in support of the Palestinian people during the Israeli attack on Gaza. In fact, a demonstration was held outside your very building to protest at your biased reporting in favour of Israel. Had you been reporting the demonstration as you should have been, you would have had documented evidence to refute the claim of chants of "Kill all Jews." But you were not at the demonstrations as you should have been. Furthermore, you represented the legitimate boycott protests outside the Israeli-owned shop of CONDEMN as being anti-Semitic in nature. It was not anti-Semitic at any time, and many Jewish people against the state of Israel and the slaughter of innocent Gazans were demonstrating alongside the pro-Palestinian supporters of all religions. The boycott of CONDENN was to educate the general public that the shop sells products from the occupied Palestinian territories, which is illegal under international law. Boycotting of such products is not anti-Semitic. It is an attempt to educate the public about the reality of the illegal occupation and that Israel makes money from the products taken from illegally occupied land, Palestinian land. Your report claimed that pro-Palestinian action is an act of anti-Semitism. It is not. It has nothing to do with the hatred of Jews and everything to do with the hatred of illegal occupation and the slaughter of innocent civilians. Lastly, criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitic, as ruled by the EU in December of 2013, who claimed that their working document, they dismissed it purely because it linked criticism of Israel to anti-Semitism, and they said it was an absolute nonsense and they didn't believe in it, and they got rid of it on the 5th of December 2013. So criticism of Israel is just that, criticism of Israel, of Israeli policy. The BBC did not balance the report in a fair way. They did not at any point speak to a pro-Palestine supporter. The one-sided bias is a disgrace to journalism and is propaganda that should be balanced with the rise in Islamophobia. Muslim shops and mosques have also been attacked, but you don't report on these crimes. Shame on you, BBC. Shame on you. Tell the truth. So you can see there, I made a number of points as to why the BBC report was unbelievably biased towards Israel. Again, they leaving the general public to believe that, one, our protests against Israel are anti-Semitic, which they aren't, and two, that we're chanting for death and we're attacking Jews. Now, if they're going to think that if Zionists, because I want to make a really complete difference here, Jews are not Zionists. Not all Zionists are Jews and not all Jews are Zionist. Zionist policy is what we're against, not Jewish people. And the media especially, keeps trying to link that falsity into any criticism of Israeli policy. So we have every right to stand up in the world and say, this is wrong and we don't want it to carry on anymore. Palestine has every right to be a nation on its own. And for us to be called anti-Semitic by the biased BBC of all people is an absolute, it's a travesty that, and you can see propaganda working. You can see propaganda working right there. And then I will go on to, I just covered CONDEMN, and I myself have been involved in protests outside CONDEMN, so it was very close to my heart, the fact that it was personal. It was personal to me. Don't call me anti-Semitic. Don't call me anti-Semitic. And then we go on to a related article. Now, I am very proud to say that I am part of the amazing Drive for Justice team. And here in Britain, there have been an awful lot of demonstrations and protests and boycotts. I'm also involved in a boycott in Manchester, a rolling protest in Manchester, and they are great guys. Drive for Justice, I will read. It'll be a lot easier if I read it. Drive for Justice contacted the Blackburn and Darwen Council on in September of 2014, highlighting the UN recommendations about supporting about companies that deal with Israel. So I'll start off by reading the recommendations and the background. Here we go. The background. In March 2014, the UN Human Rights Council passed a series of recommendations relating to the human rights situation in Palestine and other occupied Arab territories. This included calling on member states to take appropriate measures to encourage businesses domiciled in the territory and or under the jurisdiction, including those owned or controlled by them, to refrain from committing or contributing to gross human rights abuses of Palestinians in accordance with the expected standards of conduct in the guiding principles and relevant international laws and standards. So in 2014, the United Nations was already asking its member countries to ask their business at home to stop dealing with any companies that contributed towards the suffering of Palestinians. That's the United Nations. So it covers, it said there, whether they're actually in the territory or they're supported or they support the territory, which means Israeli goods sold anywhere. So this is absolutely fantastic news, because what it means in plain English is that the Blackburn and Darwen Council are now going to look at all the contracts that they have linked to companies which are involved with Israel, which is fantastic news, because they're actually going to uphold international law here. So I want you to understand that at the moment, whenever anti-Semitism is spoken about, they are constantly trying to link it with criticism of Israel, pro-Palestinian support as being anti-Semitic, which it isn't under EU law itself, but quite frankly, morally, we aren't against Jewish people. Many Jewish people are against the policies of Israel, even within Israel itself, and those people I really do respect, to actually stand against Israeli policy within Israel itself. You have my utter respect. So here you can see how propaganda is twisted. Propaganda is twisted all the time. We're shown horrific things to make us fear Muslims, and then we're shown links to pro-Palestinian activity as being anti-Semitic, which it isn't. So you can see the propaganda right there. We've got fear-mongering about Islam, and we've got the, all Jews are victims because they're being picked on because of Israel. Now, I'll say this. There have been some attacks on Jews, and there have been attacks on Muslims, and they are equally wrong. An attack on a Jew is no more important than an attack on any other person. And I 100% right now condone any attacks on any religious or person or business physically. But that does not mean that we can't stand outside the business that is selling goods or is participating in the process of the occupation and subjugation of the Palestinian people. We have every right to do that without being called anti-Semitic. So you can see here propaganda in action, twisted propaganda in action. So also the BBC never actually at any point have covered our demonstrations, and yet they can cite them when talking to Zionists, which I find absolutely appalling. But on a good note, this move by Blackburn and Darwen County is to be applauded, and I hope that all other councils follow, because after all, it is European law. And I salute you, Drive for Justice.